Welcome to the Realty Plus Real Talk Show, where we talk to industry experts to know their honest views and opinions. And today we are going to talk about co working spaces that have now become an important part of India's office real estate market. And to give an expert view, we have with us today Kushal Bhargav, co founder, MyBranch. Kushal, a warm welcome to you.
Hi, thank you.
Uh, Kushal, also, my branch has completed 10 years now in this segment. So many congratulations on that.
Thanks.
My question stems from that aspect only. You've been here for past 10 years, a decade in this segment. How have you seen the people perception about co-working changing? Earlier it was not taken very seriously. It was taken as a stopgap arrangement for
Yeah.
companies. How has the entire perception changed over 10 years?
So firstly, I would want to say is that in the last 10 years, the most important change that has been in the co-working industry is the acceptance.
Mhm.
People are more understanding, are more agile, that workspace can be more creative, can be more collaborative, because these were certain aspects where organizations were thinking that they need to have the right data security, they need to control the environment. Now the clients are not really pushing where they feel that the environment needs to be controlled. And also in co-working, people are realizing, because we are dealing with the Gen Alpha, the Gen Zs, where the feel good factor of an office is very important. And if that needs to be there and that dynamism needs to be there, it's always better to go to co-working, where they provide a vibrant, a more environment, which makes the youth feel that they want to work. So going back, as I mentioned, is there's been a lot of acceptability in the co-working industry. Along with that, there's a lot of design, there's a lot of aspects in terms of cost saving, technology. So people have used so many aspects in real estate which were earlier not even thought by people that these aspects could be looked at. So the co-working industry has actually pivoted the real estate into something larger, and the co-working industry is in fact only going to support the real estate to get bigger.
Okay, so you're saying the occupiers' understanding of co-working kind of changed over the years, that they don't have to be too controlling of the environment, and as you mentioned, the new workforce, from Gen Z to millennials, they are looking at something more flexible, more design oriented, more wellness oriented. Over the 10 years,
Absolutely.
have the co-working players also changed, from what they were 10 years back? They also changed in the way they are giving their offerings?
Absolutely. In fact, I would say it has been so good that now we have more than a couple of companies that have got listed. So that
Ah,
has been the change that has got them
yes.
got listed, because there are many more eyeballs that have got created in the last 10 years. So the evolution has been, I would want to say it's been because of COVID, but there has been a continuous evolution. And even today, the operators, including us, are still in the infancy stage. We are far from going to the maturity stage. We are still evolving. Earlier, it was large space. It was more of co-working. Then it moved to shared office. It moved
Mhm.
to flex space. Now a lot of the operators are focusing on managed office only.
Right.
So there has been a lot of evolution, and the evolution has also been because of the customer focus. If the customer is ready to, is ready to pay, is
Mhm.
ready to explore opportunities, is ready to use the flow plate in various formats, have it mixed use format, use the same cafeteria for holding events, having parties, having singing competition, having multiple things. So when people are aligned, are agile, then it becomes even more for the operator to work as per that. So as we spoke earlier also, since the customer requirements are changing, the operators also need to change, and there's lots more yet to come to.
Okay, fantastic. Rightly said, this segment has evolved and it has matured, as can be seen, as you rightly mentioned, with a lot of players now getting listed, co-working players getting listed. So all good for this segment. Lot more to come, as Kushal says. But if I have to ask you, this segment is getting very competitive. By last industry estimates, we have more than 500 players now.
Yeah, yeah.
In this field with so many players now, what is the USP of my branch?
So I'm happy you said 500. I thought the numbers were larger than that.
Okay.
Since it's so crowded at the moment, it's very important that everybody or most of them have a USP. And what we bring to the table is the largest co-working network across India. So with our presence in all the 28 states, having 80 plus workspaces across India, undoubtedly we bring reach to the table. So I would want to say in a very confident manner that co-working industry cannot do away without my branch because we bring a solution on the table. We are actually providing business, and we're enabling business or corporates to do more business because only because of our presence. I'll give you certain city names like Hanuman Konda, Jammu,
Okay.
Kolhapur. These are cities where we're coming up, Vijayawada. So corporates are looking for good, compliant, flexible workspaces in these cities. And if we are not providing these spaces, they are not able to expand. So
Mhm.
because of the value which we bring on the table or by our reach, our presence, our compliance, the companies who we deal with, they can swear by that my branch has the necessary compliances, documentation for the location. So we actually bring a lot of value to the table, and it's very difficult for anyone to emulate our concept. Yes, do we have competition? Absolutely. In fact, a lot of our competition is from local co-working players.
Mhm.
So, but there's no organized pan-India player, excuse me, who can provide space in one go. So when a corporate is looking at opening offices in, maybe 10 cities, 15 cities, there's no one else other than my branch who they can reach out to. So we
Okay.
bring a lot of solutioning, value, scalability for the clients to do business. And yeah, that's what we are.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest advantage. One, as you mentioned, national level player, and your clients get the reach to more than almost 80 locations, as you mentioned, tier two cities,
Yeah,
and most importantly, the compliant buildings, which they are used to in bigger cities, so they get the same kind of infrastructure and experience, through my branch in even smaller cities. I think that's the biggest advantage any client can have because, and you don't need to deal with so many operators in different cities. It's just through one operator
yeah,
you
yeah,
can have your reach scaled. Fantastic.
yeah.
You mentioned 80 locations now, and many of these are, how do you, first of all, prioritize which? You mentioned Hanuman Konda, you mentioned Jammu and Vijayawada. How do you decide which city you want to step in? Where do you want to open your next co-working space? What are the decisive factors?
Yeah. So I think that's a good question, and I think everybody out there wants to know how my branch decides on the expansion plan. So to be honest, we have a good, good quality, good corporates who are already working with us, and they are the people who are actually looking for expansion. So believe it or not, we work on our anchor-based expansion model. So only when a particular corporate or two or three corporates who come together and say we want to go to take a city like say Jammu, only then do we expand to a Jammu. So we have a strong account management which is there, and clients keep telling us that these are the cities. So that's our parameter number one of deciding which city to get in. But that's the easier part with client requirements being there. The tougher part is to figure out whether these cities have compliant buildings, whether there's a supply of buildings. Because a lot of times, there are cities, but compliance is not there. Like, say, for example, OC, like, say, in the Northeast, they have something called a patta, they don't have OC. So, various formats are there in multiple cities, trying to find out if there is only one CBD in the city. So if it's one CBD, then you know where to go within the city and how to expand in that city because all these cities currently, as we speak, it could be Hanuman Konda, it could be Rajamundry. I'm just taking certain state city names. They are growing at a continuous time. So it's important to get in the right CBD and then have the supply in that CBD. So, like I mentioned, is all our expansion is only based on anchor clients. We do not go into any city where we don't have demand. But like I mentioned, is getting real estate there. I think is one of the biggest challenges.
Okay, so it's the demand-led expansion, and then most difficult part, as Kushal says, is figuring out the real estate and the location,
Yeah,
the right location. That also
yeah,
comes to my next question, that you are the leading player in tier two and tier three cities.
yeah,
Uh, One of the challenges you mentioned is the real estate, the getting the right building, right location, right CBD, and opportunities, as you mentioned, that these are all growing cities. For
yeah.
any other real estate player who's thinking of pouring in tier two and tier three cities, what would be your advice? What are the opportunities and what are the challenges of these cities?
Advice and challenges, I think, are quite different. So I would say the advice would definitely be that, let's go head on, because the Bharat story is real. Since you're present, omnipresent across India, we are actually aware of what is a kind of demand that is getting created. So we see cities like Lucknow, Kochi, Coimbatore, seeing a lot of absorption. In fact, we go to a level of city even below that, cities like Shillong, Itanagar are also seeing a lot of demand. So in tier two, the demand is very high. That's because that's where the India growth story is also there. In addition to that, what happens is, I would say maybe a little bit of a secret sauce also is that there's hardly any competition in a tier two city. In a metro where you have so many organized players and so many options, in fact, in some of the places, some of the cities like, maybe a Bangalore, Indore, Mumbai, Delhi, Gurgaon, where there are co-working players at every nook and corner. So at that point of time, pricing becomes a big challenge. When you come to tier two, because of limited options being available, pricing really isn't the challenge. So I'll just take an example. Like when someone is deciding in if they want to expand in Mumbai, first thing they decide is the location. Location
Right.
is the first parameter that the micro market needs to be right. Second, they look at the facilities. And third, they come to the price.
Mm.
But when you look at expansion in a tier two, the companies only look at one option, and that is whether the building is compliant. So if the building is compliant, they do not get into a micro market, they do not get into facilities, and they do not get into pricing. It's a sure shot signing of the check or document and agreement saying, let's go. So the opportunities in a tier two are much higher, but as I mentioned already some time back, is supply is a challenge, quality infrastructure is a challenge, and also the understanding of the landlords is quite different. In tier two, the landlords are not very, are not very educated, are not very well versed with what a partnership model is. They are very concerned what with a straight jacketed conventional rental model.
Mm.
A lot of
Mm.
them, I would say maybe, at least 20% of the locations, when we are sourcing, the properties have been vacant for over 2 years. And that's because the landlords are more than happy to hold on to the prices. This is something which we don't see a phenomena in metros. In metros,
Right.
you'll never hear that a property is not sold for or not going to rent for 2 years. But in tier
Right.
two, as I said, 20% of deals we've seen that the property is not gone and the landlord doesn't even want to bend his back to get the deal going. He's pretty confident and clear that the terms are going to be as per me.
Mhm.
So, I'm sure I'm able to tell you that the challenges or the experience in tier two are very different from metros.
Correct. Correct.
Tier two customer also is very sticky. Once he's, working with at your workspace, once he's done the necessary compliances, maybe a Ranchi, maybe a Madurai, when he's sitting out of our office, the chances of him moving out are also lower, is because they don't want to go through the compliances once again. If they've
Mm.
taken the shop and establishment, they've taken the licenses, and why would they want to move again? So the stickiness also of a customer in tier two is substantially high. So I think these are some of the insights that I could give about the tier two cities.
Fantastic insights, that you mentioned that yes, metros have more competition, probably more pricing also. But in tier two cities, once you are set up, you have, as you mentioned, the clients will continue to want to be with you because now they are used to your building. And as you mentioned, that the mindsets in tier two cities are completely different, understanding that challenges of the infrastructure. And kudos to you that you have you are the biggest player in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and already opened roads for others to now venture in those cities. You also mentioned Shillong, Itanagar, Northeast as part of your, and I believe you are the only national player in Northeast region.
Correct, correct.
So I believe Northeast is even more different than other tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, or other regions. So give us a sense of what's happening there. How is co-working being taken there? What is the occupier demand? What is the mindset?
Yeah. So Northeast is one of the fastest growing markets, I would say, for us. The demand is substantially high. If I need to single out a city from all the seven sisters, I would say Shillong has the maximum demand. In fact, because of the demand, we had to open a second office in Shillong, and that's in fact the only city there where we have two offices. Also, because the micro markets in Shillong is quite different. And that's the reason, like I mentioned, we've had two offices. What is different in the Northeast is that people are ready to explore. At some point of time, people were not ready to open offices there and check what business potential is there. And in the last couple of years, in fact, I would say 2 to 3 years, we've in fact even increased and relocated our office to better areas. So
Hmm.
Itanagar also today, we've just moved into a new office. We've relocated to a larger center. So people there, pretty much I would say the demand in the Northeast today is more from the BFSI sector. So banking, insurance, I'll single out again insurance sector, which is trying to penetrate into these markets much more than any other industry. So there are larger teams from insurance businesses that are sitting in our offices. Second, I would say are people who are in the banking sector who are into providing loans, which is secured and unsecured loans that are sitting in office. So it's a predominantly these two are the businesses that are looking. Also, another product that we have is virtual office for GST registration. That is also a large business potential in the Northeast. So businesses that are running through technology, those businesses are looking for registration in these cities. So we have the likes of all the unicorns, all established business houses. We have a huge spread of industries and companies that are working in the Northeast. So if I want to give a count, I would say we would have at least 50 different companies who are working with us in the Northeast.
Fantastic. That's good to know that these many companies are working out of co-working space in a city like Shillong, and the demand is such that now you have set up two offices there, two office spaces there. If I have to talk about, as you mentioned, a lot of client BFSI, insurance, GST as virtual space. So looking at the entire India, whether it is metro, tier two cities, for corporates who are looking at expanding with agility, scale up
Correct.
faster. Uh, how can my branch or how is my branch helping them with their scaling up or growing businesses across India?
So my branch has a simple format. We work on the TINA concept. So TINA stands for there is no alternate. So
Okay.
corporates who want to expand in India, there is no option other than us available in the organized co-working sector. So we continuously keep getting demand for new locations. We get demand for relocations because these corporates are happy with what my branch has to offer. So a lot of them come back to us saying that, hey, Kushal, why don't we look at relocating our office to you? Because the compliances are better. We can focus on our business. Your focus area is real estate. Your focus area is facility management. So why don't you work on your strengths and let us work on our strengths? So we are actually enabling corporates to do exactly what you mentioned. Is we're helping them grow their business. We are helping them get into cities, get into penetrating into larger cities in India. In fact, our focus is to get to 150 cities in India. So when we get to that size, it shows to a corporate that they can also expand to 150 cities in India by just reaching out to my branch. So that's the scale of expansion that we are providing to the clients.
Okay, so with my branch, they have the reach to more than 50 cities as of now, and
Close to 75.
75 cities, 80
Yeah.
locations across India. So, and as you mentioned, they are relocating from other places to my branch. Uh, One thing I wanted to ask, you have mentioned compliance a lot of time. When we are talking
Yeah.
about what are the compliances the occupier is looking at?
Yeah. So the compliances, I think, start off with certain basic things, which is they need a OC. So an
Okay.
occupation certificate, which is kind of mandatory. They
Okay.
also need that there are two exits for, in case of fire. So there are two exits that are there in the building. They look at the lift having the NOC and approval from the local municipality. So I would say these three typically are the major compliances that they are looking at. Because if these three are there, it's giving them confirmation that this is a commercial complex. Also, what clients are also looking and occupiers are looking is the payment of property tax. So by payment of property tax, they also come to know that this is a commercial property, and
Mm.
these are and based on that, they can do the necessary compliances.
Mhm.
So, but believe it or not, even these four compliances which I mentioned to you are tough to get even in cities like Hyderabad, cities like Lucknow. It's not that, if you're in a larger city, everything is available. It's very challenging even in certain metro cities.
I think this is a news to us that we take it for granted that in at least in bigger
Yeah.
cities this will be something already there. But as Kushal mentioned, so anyone who is listening, looking at co-working spaces, these are the compliances what the clients are looking at, the basic compliances, which in many cities is still hard to get and hard to believe that it is the case. Now, concluding on this entire scenario, which has taken shape in the last decade, we have now stepped into 2026. How
Yeah.
does the next decade look for co-working segment? As you mentioned, it is evolving, it is maturing. How does the next decade looks like to you?
So co-working, I'm pretty much confident is going to move much more towards managed services. And not managed offices. So right
Okay.
now the trend which is there is of managing the offices. People are looking at getting their own offices. In the future, I'm expecting where people are going to go to a co-working and say, why don't you manage my hiring? Why don't you manage a lot of
Okay.
my BU activities, which I'm doing, but now the co-working can create that specialization. Like say housekeeping, facility management, accounting services, uh, security services, a lot of these things which are non-core to the occupier, non-core to the corporates will move. So I'm looking at the industry moving from managed offices to managed services. Second is also what I'm saying is more to do with larger corporates, GCC and all, where they're also going to get a lot of green revolution, get lot of compliance of ESG compliances. I'm sure they are going to kick in. If not, maybe in the next year by 2029, I see ESG getting kicked in also for the real estate space. Also seeing a lot of compliances which the government is going to push, for having for having office space inclusive, for everybody.
Hmm.
So the government is trying to push a lot of inclusive real estate, space available. So I think
Right.
that is also going to take that dimension, take that angle. Also, along with inclusive, also the workspace are going to become agile for differently enabled people also.
Right.
Something again which the government is trying to push. So I see a lot of changes in terms of design, in terms of build, and also in terms of the customer expectation from the co-working players in the future.
Correct. So managed services is something what Kushal says in next few years we will see the co-working space shifting to that. DNI accessibility is something which will become core to workspaces, not only co-working but I think across workspaces
Absolutely.
because of the government policies and ESG, which we are already seeing in a lot of commercial real estate becoming part of co-working. So these are three main factors which Kushal says we are going to see in next decade. One last question: any IPO plans for my branch? Are we going to
No,
see
not
that
currently.
happening?
No, so not at the
Okay,
moment. We are
okay.
bootstrapped as we speak, and
Hmm.
no plans in the immediate future.
But we will see my branch maybe across 150 cities, as you mentioned, the
Yeah,
expansion
yeah,
plans
that will
for
happen faster than
that
the
will happen
IPO.
faster. Okay, fantastic. I think, Kushal, thanks for speaking to Realty Plus and sharing those some very valuable information. And indeed, as you mentioned, flexible workspaces are no longer, as you mentioned, in last 10 years, we have also seen that from shared desks and short-term leases, it has become more, the enterprises are using for cost optimization, agility, attracting, as you mentioned, the talent, and many very soon we are going to see them moving towards more services, demanding more
Right.
services from co-working spaces. So once again, thank you, Kushal, for your time and sharing such an insightful conversation. I think it's going to help many other new co-working players who are planning to enter this field. So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for talking to us. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kushal.
thanks.